Hey, greetings everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Senior Fellow at the Media Research Center. I want to also take the time to say Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas to everyone. We're almost within a week of that incredible day. But always remember that the greatest blessing, the greatest gift that you can give to another is not something that you wrap up in a box. It's liberty and freedom. When I think about the gift of liberty and freedom, I'm really concerned about what I see happening in the United States of America right now. Let me give you a great example. Just last week, we saw Mr. Horowitz come up and give his Department of Defense Inspector General report. And I was very concerned with the 17 inaccuracies and omissions that happened with this FISA court, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court application.
Would you have submitted a warrant application as a lawyer?
Let me put it this way. I would not have submitted the one they put in.
Okay.
But no doubt about it. It had no business going in with that.
But how is it that we're living in the United States of America, where we have a secret court system anyhow? So I thought about this. Where have I heard about a secret court or secret police previously and had experiences with that? Well, I want to take you back to when I was a young lieutenant in Vicenza, Italy, back in 1984 to 1987. And one of the training rotations we had a chance to do was up in Berlin, back when Berlin was a divided city, back when there was an Iron Curtain. We trained over in West Berlin, and their combat in the cities facility was one of the best in the world. And I had to tell you, it really did a good job of training you in urban combat operations. But during that time period, you got one day to put on your dress green uniform, your spit shine jump boots, and your maroon paratrooper beret, and you crossed over behind that Iron Curtain. You went through a place called Checkpoint Charlie, and too often we don't talk about Checkpoint Charlie. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of these young people that want to embrace socialism because they have never really understood, and we don't teach that anymore. But when you go through Checkpoint Charlie, you live the liberty and freedom of West Berlin. And you cross over into the darkness and the tyranny and the despondency that you find, well, because of socialism. And that's what I saw in East Berlin. And over there in East Berlin, we had the opportunity to go see some of their war memorials. We saw the changing of the guard for their tomb of the unknown soldier. We got an opportunity to go into stores and shop. But most importantly, we were being followed. We were being watched. Not so much us, but any interactions with East Germans. It was being conducted by an organization called the Stasi, that stood for the Ministry of State Security. It was kind of like their state police.
A house search filmed by the Stasi. The hunt for alleged enemies of the state knows no bounds.
It was an organization, an intelligence and secret police organization that had some 90,000 employees, but more importantly, had almost 180,000 informants. And then the existence of the East German Stasi from February of 1950 to January of 1990, 40 years, 250,000 some odd East Germans were arrested, imprisoned. See, when we were walking along those streets in East Berlin, the East Berliners, they didn't want to look at us eye to eye. They didn't want to say anything to us. When we would go into the stores and buy what they did have on the shelves, they didn't want to talk to us beyond the normal business transactions because they were being watched. They were being surveilled upon. They were being spied upon. And what we came to find out last week is that the exact same thing is happening here in the United States of America. With a government, state, intelligence apparatus, a somehow secret court system, and law enforcement officials that seem to not want to care so much about the rule of law rather than just rule, period. See, how did we get to the point in the United States of America where all of a sudden members of a political opposition, which I thought we had the right with our freedom of expression and the right to assemble and the right to petition our government for redress of grievances, but all of a sudden the power of government is being leveraged against these individuals. They're being spied upon. They're being arrested. And in many cases, they're being threatened, intimidated, coerced, and sometimes even beaten. Think about the fact that we now live in the United States of America, where a sitting member of the United States House of Representatives from right here in the great state of Texas, Joaquin Castro, can put out a list of supporters for the political opposition. And we know why that list was put out. Think about how a constitutional conservative grassroots movement, exercising their First Amendment rights, can all of a sudden have the power of government leveraged against them. And no one is held accountable. As a matter of fact, Lois Lerner's still laughing her way to the bank with that six-figure taxpayer-funded retirement that she has. Look at a group like Antifa that has all of a sudden popped up onto the screen, and how they're out there threatening and intimidating, coercing people, conducting acts of violence, saying that they stand up for anti-fascism, but yet they don't want to allow anyone that has an opposing thought, perspective, insight, or viewpoint to have the ability to speak. Think about red flag laws, where all of a sudden someone, government informants, can just come up and go to the law enforcement and say that perhaps this person needs to have their firearms confiscated. And the state ends up doing exactly that. Gary J. Willis, a 60-year-old man of Ferndale, Maryland, in November 2018, an innocent man, guilty of nothing, lost his life at 5 o'clock in the morning at his home because of a red flag protection order that no one has ever seen. See, what is happening in America is that we are finding a new American Stasi being created, an intelligence apparatus, a state police type of agency that is lurking in the shadows, but yet finding the ability to target innocent Americans, all for one reason: because of their political beliefs, not being part of a progressive socialist ideological agenda. This is not the gift that we want to give to our children and our grandchildren. Thank God that the wall came down and there no longer is an East German Stasi police. But somehow, some way, that ideological perspective, that desire to have control and power, that tyrannical view has found a home here in the United States of America. We should not have secret courts. We should not have the ability for anyone to leverage the power of government, the state, against individual citizens and erode and eradicate their rights. I am very concerned about Mr. Horowitz's DOJ IG report, because what it does tell us is that there is a new American Stasi that is being created in the land of the free, because some people believe that they should intimidate the brave.